Well, it happened. So, this is going to be a spoiler discussion of episode 2 of season 2 of HBO's The Last of Us. I'm not dressed fancy today. I'm having a drink while we talk about this episode because I think it deserves it, honestly. So, before we dive too far into the episode, again, this is a spoiler discussion of episode 2 of The Last of Us. So if you have not yet seen the episode, don't watch any further because, well, you don't want this spoiled for you. Unless you've played the game, then you already know. But if you haven't played the game, you should probably get off of this video, go watch the episode, and then please come back, watch this episode. So, well, the thing that I knew would have to happen at some point happened a bit sooner than I thought. And last week, when I did my discussion on episode 1, I was really trying to dance around the fact that Joel would eventually die and that his actions at the end of season 1 would catch up to him. And if I'm being honest, I thought that we would wait a little bit. I thought we would have one more episode maybe of peace in Jackson Hole with everybody and kind of slowly start to wind up that tension and have the walls closing in even more on Joel before he eventually gets clubbed to death. But no. And honestly, I kind of like that. It really did take me by surprise that we would go ahead and kill off this character just in week 2 of this show. And remember, game 2 is being split into 2 seasons. So it's not that the remainder of this season is going to be the rest of game 2. We have another almost a full season and then an entire full season after this that will lead up to the events that conclude at the end of Game 2. And I'm starting to understand why. At first, I thought this was kind of an interesting decision to split up the second game into 2 seasons. I thought that it might feel a bit bloated, no pun intended, given something that we're going to talk about here in a minute, but I was hesitant about the 2-season run of Game 2, but now I'm starting to kind of understand because, and once we get to talking about the episode, I think my thoughts here will be made clear, hopefully, but I'm starting to really understand why they did this, and I'm starting to also appreciate this decision that the creators have made. Yeah, I'm gonna keep drinking this in honor of Joel, so if I pause to take a drink, I hope you do the same, because, well, my God, that final bit was just gut-wrenching. So let's go ahead and dive into the actual episode here. And off to my right, I have a bunch of notes that I took during this episode because I thought that the episode was great. I really, really, really liked this episode. Aside from the events that conspire, I thought this was an excellent episode of television, so I made sure to make plenty of notes here, and we're just going to kind of go down the list in order of what unfolded throughout the episode, and I'm going to just talk about what I like and what, well, not really anything I didn't like, honestly, about this episode. I thought it all played out very efficiently and effectively, and it was constantly unsettling and intense. I thought this was just a really well-crafted hour of television and also cemented HBO as really an appointment viewing of each of their shows. I mean, if The Pit, like I said last week, wasn't proof enough for this year, or White Lotus Season 3, then episode 2 of The Last of Us, I really don't know what to tell you if you continue to disagree here. So, like I said, this is just going to be a really laid-back discussion on Season 2 episode 2 of Last of Us. Let's go ahead and dive in here. The first thing that really caught my attention and something that I really liked here was the opening bit with future Abby. Well, I guess in terms of the show, current, but future Abby talking to 5 years ago, Abby in the hospital, warning her about what she was going to see. Her father dead on the floor, blood splattered, and young Abby, who at the time of the attack that Joel created, was just 19 years old. I really liked that moment where Abby was talking to her past self and the sort of fear that she and her past self feel in that moment. Even though she already knows what's behind that door, she's still just so unsettled by it. I really like that moment. And I'm going to talk about this here in a little bit, but I do kind of respect this show for kind of making you empathize with Abby, given how much of a villain she is. I mean, she is, oh my God. I mean, she is such a frustrating character, and you want vengeance on her so bad. But yet, sometimes the show puts you in her shoes, and you can't help but empathize with her. And I really do appreciate those moments that the show gives you. And this was definitely one of them. So then you flash forward to present day. Abby and her crew are up in the cabin creating a plan. And it's from here, there's no escaping. I mean, they have a plan. Abby knows exactly what she wants to do. She knows how she wants to do it. There is no escaping. There's no talking her out of it. She knows exactly what she's going to do. And I feel like this is something that I'm going to have to mention each week. Kaitlyn Dever as Abby is so good in this show already. She, especially in the sequence where she is planning the attack and her plan to kill Joel, she really does an excellent job at conveying the anger, the sadness, and just the complete vengefulness that Abby has towards Joel. I mean, she will stop at nothing to make sure that he dies and pays for everything that he did in that hospital that day 5 years ago. She just does such a great job at conveying all of these emotions. She has been an actress to watch for so long, and I feel like this show is only further cementing her as one of the best young actors out there right now. So the moment in the cabin I thought was great. And then we move to Jackson Hole with Ellie, and she's trying to reconcile with Joel and trying to make amends after what happened at the dance. And knowing what was going to eventually happen made this sequence all the more painful, because this was kind of the point in the show where in the episode where I realized that maybe this was gonna be the episode that Joel doesn't make it out of. And hearing Ellie try to reconcile and try to find Joel and spend time with him, it kind of, I went into this episode with a bit of a pit in my stomach, just having a gut feeling that this was going to be the one, despite hoping that it would be a few episodes down the line. And listening to her try to, like I said, reconcile with Joel and try to find him and spend time with him, it just made it all the more painful knowing what was going to eventually happen. But I really liked that moment. Bella Ramsey really got to show a lot of emotion, not as much emotion as she got to show at the end of the episode, but I thought this was a really great moment for Ellie and Bella Ramsey as an actor as well. Now, the whole episode also had a sense of unease from the beginning, where you're hearing this plan that Abby and her team have, and then it really snowballs up until the end. I mean, it's just got a constant sense of unease. You don't know what's going to happen next. Danger feels like it could be around, any corner, and that's something that the show has set up. pretty well, especially throughout season 1, is nobody's ever safe. There's never really, except for a few moments, any sense of complete comfort and peace in this world, and I thought that was done really well here. It just constantly felt unpredictable. I didn't know what was going to happen next, and then once stuff hit the fan, we'll say, it was nonstop until the credits rolled, and I really did enjoy that aspect here. So we do also find out, and I don't know for sure, because I can't remember last week's episode. I can't remember if Catherine O'Hara, who also didn't appear in this week's episode, which I'm very curious to see if Ellie ends up meeting with Catherine O'Hara here, either in episode 3 or 4. I kind of hope she does, to try and get some understanding as to what Joel was going through while she was going through stuff as well. I think that would be a really interesting approach to take. But we find out that Joel killed a former war vet turned firefighter, and I couldn't help but wonder if this was in fact Catherine O'Hara's husband that she was talking about in episode 1. Again, I can't remember or if she said what his name was, but I couldn't help but think that maybe this was the guy that Joel killed, being her husband. So we find out that little bit of information. And then one of my favorite moments from this episode was the infected crawling out of the snow and the onslaught of an attack that ensues after that was just creepy as heck. I mean, you see the frozen bodies, and then you start to hear the cracking of the ice and the bodies kind of slowly rising up out of the snow, and then it feels like on the flip of a coin, it all just unleashes. All of these bodies are jumping up out of the snow and racing towards Jackson Hole and everybody that was in danger. I thought this was a really, really great moment. It also shows the scale and the impressive practical effects that we see throughout each episode in this show, and it made me appreciate the dedication HBO has to their shows. This one specifically, but it also kind of reminded me of Game of Thrones and how they don't half-ass their visual effects. The scale is impressive. I mean, later on in this battle, we see explosions going off and the infected getting killed left and right, and it just felt so cinematic that it really made me appreciate the commitment that HBO has to their shows. And I thought this moment in particular was just a really, really creepy but very impressive moment for an episode of television. I mean, it felt like something you should be watching in a theater, but it's a TV show. So that made me really, really glad to see. We've seen bits of that sequence in previous trailers, but to watch it all unfold was really, really just kind of chaotic and very, very intense. And later on, the show, during this sequence where the infected are rising up out of the snow and charging after Abby, it made me realize that the show is making it very difficult, and it did this earlier in the episode and last week, but it makes it very difficult not to empathize with Abby and, not root for her, but when she's in danger, you can't help but hope that she might escape. And so I like that the show is kind of putting you in her position, with her, desire to kill Joel. I mean, you can understand why, but also when she's in danger, as somebody who's played Last of Us Part 2, I knew she would live, but watching the episode, I was just like, is she gonna make it out? And I hope she makes it out, because it was a really tough situation, and that fence closes in even more. She gets pinned up against the wall, and then just when you think that it might all be over, I mean, Joel, He holds out his hand, saves her life, and that also makes what we're going to talk about here soon even more painful, because at his core, Joel is a good guy who has just done bad things, and maybe his rationale might not be the most sound, but he is a good guy, and we see that. He doesn't know Abby. He doesn't know her at all, but he is willing to save her and gets her to safety. And, well, that's where this whole episode really just... It took a turn that I knew there was no escaping from, and so we're gonna go ahead and dive in to that bit here. And I'm not gonna lie, as I was watching this, I'd be lying if I said I didn't get choked up. I mean, I knew it was coming, like I said, but watching it unfold on screen and having, really gotten to know the character of Joel throughout season 1. And, Pedro brought so much to the character. It was a very, very tough watch. So, I thought that I thought that maybe doing this video I would even get a little choked up. I'm glad I haven't. But it was a really emotional moment. I mean, several lines and several sequences, when Joel was pinned. I mean, he was cornered. There was nowhere he could go. They had put Dina to sleep for the next hour, which, I mean, my God. I mean, jeez. So there's no way out for Joel, and he knows that. He doesn't try to run. He doesn't try and fight. He just accepts it. In a way, and I really like the line that he says. I put it in my notes here. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but he says, and if you have kids around, maybe mute this because I'm going to say it word for word. But Joel says, "Shut the fuck up and do it already." That line was just horrifying to me, because it's just, he knows what's happening, and he doesn't want to give Abby that satisfaction of giving her long, drawn-out speech. He just wants to get it over with, because he knows that his actions have caught up to him, and there's nowhere for him to run. He's cornered. He has guns pointed at him. It was just a really, really emotional moment within the episode. Now, as that is playing out, we also see the safety of Jackson Hole come crashing down. I mean, that horde of infected comes just bursting into town. You see Tommy and so many other citizens along a wall just trying to defend the town. But eventually the infected get in, and casualties are just left and right. And I'm a little glad we don't see a lot of the aftermath of that. I mean, we do towards the very, very end of the episode, but I'm glad we're not seeing a lot of these citizens turn into infected. And I don't know. It was just the safety and security that we felt in Jackson Hole for a brief moment in episode 1 is no longer there. It was unsettling, it was intense, it was gory, and you just never know who is going to live and who is going to die. So while Joel is backed up against a corner and seeing through the window what is happening in Jackson Hole, it was just so, it was tethered together so nicely. And then the bloater in the Jackson Hole sequence. This is the first time that we've seen a bloater, I think, in this show, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think we saw one in season 1. Practical effects, I said it last week. I'm going to probably continue to say it throughout this season. But the practical effects, especially on that bloater, were really, really good. And we see the sequence with the flamethrower and constantly just getting lower and lower and lower on gas, and then the bloater just crumbles to the ground. I thought the effects on that bloater were so good. So back in the cabin with Abby, her crew, and Joel, like I said, Joel gets cornered, and then one line also that I really liked was when Abby says, "What life?" And you know that Joel has taken everything from her. I mean, without even really knowing it, he killed her father with just not even knowing who he was. I mean, just in cold blood, just killed him. And so Abby has really nothing left to lose here. She has no life. She's just so hell bent on making sure that Joel pays for what he did. And I thought that their whole conversation leading up to Joel saying again, "Shut the fuck up and do it already," and then Abby immediately responding with, "You don't get to rush this," was just so chilling. That whole sequence, you can see the just complete anger in Abby's eyes. It is cold. She just wants him dead, and you can see kind of some fear in Joel's eyes and the sadness and the pain as he eventually gets assaulted with a golf club. The whole sequence, it is, I mean, designed to be uncomfortable and horrifying and hard to watch, and the performances only made that even harder to witness. And then when you bring Ellie into the mix, and as she gets pinned down by Abby's crew and is forced to watch Joel bleed to death and then eventually get one final knife to the throat, it was just all so horrifying and uncomfortable and sad and gut-wrenching. And then I'm going to end with this. The final overhead shot with Ellie laying over Joel's dead body, and then cutting to Ellie, Jesse, I think is his name, yes, and Dina going back to Jackson Hole on their horses and dragging Joel's body behind them as they go back. I mean, that is the final nail in the coffin. You know that what happened actually did, in fact, occur. And, well, there's no turning back now. I mean, we knew that Abby was a very vengeful person, but now that Joel is gone, Ellie witnessed his death. There's no turning back. There is no stopping Ellie from pursuing Abby. And I'm very curious to see how they do several elements from Game 2 going forward, because this story, I'm not going to give it away, but it does expand quite a bit. A lot of characters get introduced. A lot of kind of side groups get introduced. And so I'm very curious to see how all of this is handled, with the events that conspired here only occurring in episode 2. There's a lot of story left. So I'm very, very curious to see how it is all handled throughout the rest of this season and going into season 3. So what did you think of episode 2 of season 2 of HBO's The Last of Us? Did you like it? I mean, it's a great episode of television. Just aside from everything that happened, I think it is such a great piece of television. Let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments down below. Thank you so much, as always, for watching this episode. If you like what I do here, hit the subscribe button for more film and television content from me. And, well, as always, I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.